Abroad Pod.
Hello, listener, and thank you so much for joining me on this 58th edition of the Teaching Abroad Pod. I'm your host, Rowan, and joining me this week is two-time Oxford Seminars TEFL student and current English teacher, Simone Kist. She has been teaching in one of my favorite places I've ever lived in the world, Costa Rica. I just got back from living there last spring, a little over a year ago, and I do miss many things about it. The nature, obviously, the food, the low cost of living compared to where I live now. And just being able to go to the local soda and get a full meal, a casado with meat, veggies, salad, rice, beans, plantains, all of that good stuff for the dollar equivalent of about $6 or $7. I do really miss that, along with the slower pace of life and easy access to tropical beaches. But there's not really any point talking anymore about this until we're joined by Simone, who I'm sure has a lot of great stories about the many things to do and see in Costa Rica. But first, a word from our sponsor.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 30 years, and you could be next. Our comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. Right now, you can get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESL, TEFL course price when paying in full by calling 1-888-225-2480 and giving the code TEACHINGABROADPOD. Visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more.
Welcome back, listeners. We are now joined by Oxford Seminars graduate and experienced in-person and online English instructor Simone Kist, who has been living and teaching in Costa Rica since June of last year. Simone holds a Bachelor of Arts in Eastern Religious Studies from York University in Toronto and took her first Oxford Seminars TEFL course back in 2002 in person in Toronto, and just finished the 60-hour in-class component of her current 120-hour live via Zoom course last month. She's worked in a variety of roles over the years, from educator in the agriculture and healthcare fields to fashion designer to quality assurance, and kind of full circle back to teaching. Simone, welcome to the Teaching Abroad Pod.
Hi, Rowan. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here today joining you on the pod.
You are most welcome. It's great to finally meet you after all these emails back and forth.
Yeah, I love having you as my placement advisor, Rowan. You've been so helpful, and it is beautiful to meet you today face to face.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to start off asking about your recent upgraded TEFL certificate. I know it's been quite a few years since you took your original course way back in 2002, but from what you recall, how would you say your most recent in-class portion compared, being live via Zoom as opposed to in person? How did you like this style of delivery over 3 consecutive weekends?
I loved it. I really, really enjoyed the course. My instructor was Instructor Amy, and she was so thorough. And even though I've been teaching for a little while now, I just gained a lot of insights from her. She would talk in depth about the history of the English language. I learned new techniques for learning, for teaching grammar, new things about phonetics. And I thought the format being on Zoom was really good. You know, I wouldn't say that it created any distance or any problems in the teaching. As a group, we all participated with each other. So yeah, it was really interesting, totally worth it. I learned a lot of new things, and I would really recommend it to anyone who's interested in pursuing this as a career. When I think back to 2002, wow, I feel really old right now. But I do remember that I did enjoy the class back then too. It was a shorter course at the time, right? So, you know, not quite as in depth, but it still provided me with the skills and insight that I needed to be a good ESL teacher. So even though there were 20 years between the time I took the course and directly applied it, I still could remember what I was taught and definitely work with that. So it was good preparation, even way back then, but definitely the new course, the 120-hour course online, it's really at a different level. It really brings it up a notch. And I did learn so much, even though I'm already a teacher. So 100% recommended to anyone thinking of being an English teacher abroad.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I'm just wondering, you mentioned you didn't really use it in a TEFL context right after you took that original course, but did you find it was helpful or useful in your educator style roles in the other fields, the agriculture and healthcare fields?
Absolutely, right? Especially learning how to do a lesson plan, developing a curriculum, gathering material, researching, and thinking about how to apply that research and material to a learner context. So yes, a lot of it is completely transferable to other education roles, and I certainly used it as an educational writer and curriculum creator. And even to some other, positions where I was just training people, training staff how to do things, using the correct language, adapting to the learner. All of that's invaluable to any kind of teaching and training role.
Great, great. Glad to hear that. So you're in Costa Rica. As you know, I was in Costa Rica. I'm wearing Costa
Pura
Rica
vida.
hat and my tree frog Costa Rica shirt.
Nice.
I was there until last spring and loved it. What's it been like for you living and teaching in Costa Rica? What have been some of the highlights for you?
Oh, well, you know how we say when we're living here that we live where other people vacation, right? So many people dream of coming to Costa Rica. They've heard about the wonderful variety of animals, the ecosystems, all of, everything you can see here and do here tied to the natural world. And of course, also the friendly attitude of the people, right? That pura vida attitude, which means the pure life. So
Right.
it's really been very interesting, fun, always seeing something new. I mean, I'd been to Costa Rica many times before, but to really live the experience and be here, just seen so much, waterfalls, beaches, animals. I had a boa snake in our back garden a couple of weeks ago,
Not a
so
pet.
like, yeah, like you see everything up close. You don't even have to, take a tour. You just have to go outside and you'll be exposed to some really wonderful things.
That's
So yeah,
true.
definitely enjoyed the experience.
I totally forgot. I was just thinking back to our first apartment we lived in. It was kind of a little bit outside of the downtown and more of natural area. Yeah, and you'd hear the howler monkeys in the morning and the agoutis scurrying across the driveway and things like
Yeah.
the iguanas sunning on rocks. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nature is everywhere.
Oh, it is, it is. And I've had the good luck of now living both in the main city and now I'm living on the Caribbean coast. So even if we talk about, outside of natural attractions, there's different cultures you can experience here in Costa Rica. It's not all the same, right? So here on the Caribbean coast, we have a lot of the Afro-Caribbean culture. People who had come generations ago from Jamaica to work on the banana plantations and build the roads. So they brought, their own culture here too. So living on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, it's as if Costa Rica and Jamaica had a baby together, and that's the resulting culture. So that's been really interesting too, to be able to compare, big city life in Costa Rica with living in a small coastal town on the Caribbean. So yeah, there's
That'd be
definitely a
so
lot to
different.
learn about the culture too.
We kind of we stayed in a very central area, like kind of the national capital to the Pacific coast. So yeah, I didn't go to the Caribbean. My son's piano teacher was from that area, so I guess we experienced a tiny bit. And we met
Yeah.
a lawyer at the Canadian club meeting, who was
Oh,
from there. But that's about the extent of our experience with the Caribbean
oh,
culture. A couple
okay.
of people from there.
Oh, well, if you come back, you'll have to come and visit this side of Costa Rica too. You're the final piece of your Costa Rican puzzle.
I guess. Now, before we really get to all the sights to see, do you have any favorite food or drinks you'd want to shout out?
Oh yeah, well. There's a lot of them. Of course, everyone in Costa Rica eats a dish called gallo pinto, which is rice and beans, but it's cooked in a very tasty, savory way. You can have it breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, anytime. And then there's another dish that sounds like it's the same thing, but it's kind of different, and that's rice and beans. So rice and beans is made more with coconut milk. It's a little sweeter. It's usually not eaten for breakfast, but for lunch or dinner. And it has that very sort of tropical flavor, almost like eating something from Thailand. So those are definitely two foods I can speak about. I myself am vegetarian, leaning towards vegan, and I've been very impressed with the variety of food I can find in restaurants and grocery stores here. Food is never a problem for any dietary restriction. You can always find something pretty yummy. For drinks, of course, they drink a lot of rum here and beer, but there's this other drink called guaro, and it's like also made from the sugar cane, and it is really inexpensive. So for that reason, it's quite popular. And they make this drink where they add, they add some, it's almost like a Caesar or a Bloody Mary. It's got tomato juice and onion and cilantro, and then they put a spicy rim on the top of it. And of course, Costa Rican coffee, right? It's famous worldwide. So, that's something that most people really enjoy here. You can take tours to learn about it, and you can see the coffee growing on many of the hillsides as you travel through the country. So yeah, my two recommendations would definitely be the coffee and then this chiliguaro and when you're out for a night on the town.
Nice. That drink sounds yummy, quite flavorful. Would you find that the guaro just by itself is a little harsh, or is it relatively smooth?
It's a little bit lighter maybe than rum, but it's not super pleasant tasting by itself. So it's generally mixed with something else, usually this chili guaro, but they also can mix it with mango juice or passion fruit juice. So that's pretty common too. And the passion fruit one is super yummy. Definitely. I love that one. So yeah, it's an interesting little thing that's specific here to Costa Rica. I think they have similar drinks, Panama, Colombia, but guaro is definitely a Costa Rican specialty. And when you meet new people at a restaurant or bar, very often they will say, "Let me buy you a chili guaro. You have to try a chili guaro." So you'll be exposed to it whether you seek it out or not when you come to Costa Rica.
Sounds good. Do you have any tips in terms of adjusting to the culture or language differences? Like what
Oh,
would people benefit from thinking about and trying to do to lessen the culture shock?
okay, yeah, absolutely. I think about those things quite a lot, actually. Costa Rican people are very friendly and welcoming, right? You will rarely see a Costa Rican person in a bad mood or looking angry. So they're very approachable, very helpful.
Pura
Um,
vida.
but yeah, pura vida. But there's a little bit of a flip side to that because they want to always be so positive and not, enter into any conflict. You may not always get like a completely sincere or straightforward answer from people. And it's not that anyone is trying to lie or deceive you, but, for example, if you're trying to have a meeting at the bank, you'll get told, yes, 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 come at 10 o'clock. And then last minute, no, it's not going to happen. So, it's kind of, you have to expect that you will be told yes sometimes, even when the answer is no. But it's just, you can't let it worry you. It doesn't bother Costa Ricans, so you can't let it bother you either. It's much more of a go with the flow, play it by ear kind of culture. And I'd say the key thing is to be patient, be friendly, try to learn a little bit of Spanish because they certainly appreciate it if you even can try a few words in Spanish. You'll immediately be, rewarded for your efforts with even more friendship and curiosity. Also realize that as an English speaker, people will be drawn to you because they want to practice their English. Sometimes you'll be in a situation speaking with one person in English, and another Costa Rican person will hear you talking in English. They want to join the conversation too, to practice their English. So, you'll definitely meet a lot of people who will say to you, hey, do you mind if I sit with you for a while and practice my English? I always say, yes, of course, because, as an English teacher, it's natural for me to try and help you with your English. But I try to return the sentiment by asking them a few words in Spanish too, so that it can be more of an exchange. Yeah, definitely Costa Ricans are friendly, warm, welcoming. But they always, always want to say yes. And you have to watch out for that and just be patient and kind of realize that's just how it rolls here.
Great advice. Thank you. So I did mention to you before that I spent almost a year in Costa Rica myself recently and absolutely loved it. And I thought maybe we could share our top 5 sites to see or things to do and see if we have any crossover. You probably have me beat, but it might be fun to see what we recommend for people who are traveling to Costa Rica for travel or work.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I'll start with my number 5. So we didn't go to any big waterfalls, any of the really famous ones, but we did visit an off the beaten track one at Las Minas near Atenas, where we were living at
I
the
know.
time. A nice little pool for swimming at the bottom. You could jump off the cliff and into the pool, and it wasn't busy at all. So I really did enjoy that one.
Yeah, that one is great. I've been there too. It's nice and hidden. It's off the tourist path, as you said. And you must have been reading my mind, because my number 5 is Waterfalls. And I couldn't pick just one because they're all so beautiful. But perhaps I will suggest one that is close to the city, but still off the beaten track. And it's called Cataratas Tabú. Cataratas is just the Spanish word for waterfalls. Taboo is like a taboo in English, something that you can't talk about. So maybe they picked that in order to give it a sort of secret flair in the name. There were ducks floating around in the waterfall. You could climb and go in. It had different steps to it. Even though there's more popular ones like La Paz Waterfall Gardens, this one was really special simply because it was so unknown and we were the only people there. It was really something special. So yeah, my number 5 is all of the waterfalls, but picking one, Catarata Tabu.
Sounds great. If I'm ever back, I'll have to check it out.
Mhm.
All right, number 4, I've got the Blue Morpho Butterfly Garden in Guasimo, just west of San Antonio. That place was such a blast. We did it twice, actually. You get to see all the stages of the life cycle and have some of the most beautiful blue butterflies all around you, landing on your shoulders, on your hands. I don't know if you ever went to any of the butterfly gardens, but that one has a special place in my heart.
Oh yeah, I mean, just so many gorgeous butterflies here, and to see them all in one place, landing on you, it's magical, right? For my number 4, I picked a town, and that's the town of Montezuma. Montezuma is a town on the Pacific coast, and I picked it because it has a very unique atmosphere to it for the Pacific side of Costa Rica. It's small. It seems to draw a little bit of a bohemian kind of crowd to it. It also has many waterfalls and cute little restaurants. Even though it's a tourist hotspot to a degree, that hasn't taken over its identity. It still feels very authentic, creative. People go there to do yoga, people go there to surf, but there's an arts community there too. So I would highly recommend people, if you want something a little less well known, but still very interesting with lots to do and lots to eat and see. I recommend the town of Montezuma on the Nicoya Peninsula.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, I've always enjoyed living in little artsy communities. I mean, not in Costa
Mm.
Rica as much, but in other places I've lived, they have this real vibe to them. The special kind of people make it the place it
Mm.
is.
I think you'd love Montezuma.
Sounds like. All right. Number 3, I'm going with coffee tours. I did a couple that were pretty neat. Being a coffee drinker and coffee lover, I guess.
Yeah.
That one was important for me. The second one I did was at one of the most famous coffee companies in Costa Rica, Brit Coffee. You'll
Mhm.
probably see their coffee in all the major stores and their cafes at every tourist attraction, in the airport even, I think. And they have a very professional setup with a good restaurant on site. It learn about the whole process from the harvest through the processing, different types, roasts, etc. But honestly, it did feel a bit like being on a Disney tour or something. The guides, in their little uniforms and very scripted and a bit silly. But it was fun
Yeah.
and something definitely worth doing. But my favorite one was actually the first one I did at El Toledo near Atenas, where we were living for the
Oh,
first 6 months of our stay. It was super authentic. You toured the actual fields where they're actually growing the beans for
mhm.
sale. You heard their stories about how and why they went organic due to the illness of their founder from pesticides. And we did a
Wow.
tasting and learned a lot about why you get the different flavors from the different beans and the different roasts. The true coffee taste from the light roast, with the medium being a nice kind of combination of the true coffee taste with the sweetness of the caramelization, and then the
Wow.
dark roast, which had always been my favorite, to be honest, to that point, but it lost a little bit of its luster, I guess, when I learned it's more just burnt and not like a
Right.
real coffee taste. And
Uh-huh.
so I've kind of switched to medium, a good solid medium roast more often than not since then. And they also make some really cool products that you won't find most places, like coffee jams and coffee wines and stuff like that. So that one definitely worth checking out if you haven't.
Yeah, okay, I'll remember that one for sure. The one that was near where I lived was near Santa Ana. It was called La Chimba. And it was a very authentic one too. And what was special about it also is they had this mano de mantra, which was like a big hand shaped kind of a bridge kind of thing that jutted out over the hills that you could go and stand on to have your picture taken. Definitely, I agree with you. If you're a coffee drinker, you're going to be in paradise here in Costa Rica for sure. So my number three, I picked a national park for number three, Manuel Antonio Park. And this is very famous in Costa Rica. It's only about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive from the capital. And it's a small park, but it has absolutely gorgeous beaches on the Pacific and a lot of wildlife. You will see lots of iguanas. You may see some monkeys, all of the usual suspects that you hope to see when you're in Costa Rica. But I think what stands out about it is just how picturesque it is, and it has these white sand beaches, which are a little bit more rare on the Pacific coast. The Pacific coast usually has kind of golden or gray sand. But at Manuel Antonio, it's that perfect white sand and deep turquoise kind of water. But you need to get there early because it is also extremely popular. If you're going, you have to book your ticket online first. Don't just show up, and try to book well ahead because during peak seasons or weekends, it will be booked up. Try to do what we do. Go first thing when it opens in the morning. When we did this last September, we were literally the only people there for about 15, 20 minutes, which was enough time to take pictures of the beaches while they're deserted. And then the throngs of crowds just started arriving, right? So go very early and realize that you'll only be alone for a little while. But still, I mean, it's paradise. So of course everyone is there. You just have to share it with more people if you go later on in the day.
Fantastic advice for sure. A lot of people, I'm sure, are disappointed with themselves when they get there a bit late and it's hard to get in or they can't even get in. We didn't actually do that one, probably for some of those reasons. After some research, like, oh, this sounds like it's really a lot of planning. And
Mhm.
I had heard that some, people had problems with maybe they didn't book it directly.
You actually book it through like it's a government website that has all the national parks and information for each one. So when you do it that way, I think it's maybe like 10 or $15 US to enter. But like you said, there's many third parties doing this. So they will buy up the tickets and then resell them at a higher price. So if you show up on the day, you'll have people approaching you saying, oh no, the park is full, you can't go in, but I have tickets here, $50
Right, right,
ticket.
right.
So, just avoid all of that and book ahead of time and show up real early. It's still a great experience, and that's why I put it at number three. But those are the reasons why it's not number one.
Good,
All
good
right.
caveat. Yeah, we didn't go there, but we did go nearby. We did some zip lining near Quepos, which was beautiful jungle area and the best views looking out over the landscape down to the sea and all that. So it was a beautiful part of the country for sure.
Mhm.
And on the topic of animals, flora, fauna, I guess my number 2 is the Rescate Wildlife Rescue Center just west of Alajuela. If you want to see a sloth near San Jose, there's a good chance you might see them there. We definitely did. It was actually a mother sloth, although she apparently is free to come and go as she pleases. Whenever she's going to give birth, she comes back to that area because she knows it's safe. And so we saw her up
Uh-huh.
in the treetops with her little baby, all hugging her, and uh,
Aw.
amazing animals throughout. And what I really also liked about that one is that they make it very clear that they are about nursing animals back to health and returning them to the wild. The only animals that are there as permanent residents, so to speak, are those that cannot safely return to the wild and live in their natural habitat. So pretty cool place to check out if you have not.
Yeah, I haven't been to that one. I've heard of it, but that one I've not been to. So when I'm back in the Central Valley sometime, I'll check that out for sure. I feel like we're almost on the same wavelength because sloths are involved with my number 2 also. But again, I kind of just picked a town, and this time I picked the town of Cahuita, which is on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. The park itself has beautiful white sand beaches, probably the most beautiful you'll see. But the reason I made it number 2 is because one, it's not as busy as Manuel Antonio, and two, you're going to see a lot more wildlife there. So if you go to the town of Cahuita, there's a national park you'll go through. Because it's a national park, it's not developed at all. You will see dozens of monkeys. You'll be able to count sloths on both hands.
Wow.
You see different snakes and vipers and things, usually with a park ranger beside it telling you not to go near it. But the abundance of wildlife in Cahuita National Park on the Caribbean is much greater than any of the other national parks that are tend to be with beaches. There's also a sloth rescue center in Cahuita. There's also a turtle nesting organization. So we have leatherback turtles coming to nest also. So I really picked Cahuita and its national park and beaches, not just for their, beauty of being beaches, but because of the abundance of wildlife. There's also a beautiful reef you can go snorkeling to and dive on. And then there's the land animals, you'll see sloths guaranteed. It's not just like maybe, it's
Wow.
you will see them. So
You
sloths,
got me beat. You
howler
got me beat.
monkeys, capuchin monkeys, you'll see everything there. So and the town itself has a real relaxed vibe with lots of good little restaurants. It's very small, but it's been developed as sort of an ecotourism hotspot. Later in this month, they're having an Afro Fest there to celebrate the African heritage of the area. So it's got everything. It's got the beaches, it's got the animals, it's got the culture. Like I say, it's my number 2. So that is pretty well recommended by me to visit there when you have a chance.
I think your number 2 sounds better than my number 1, but I'll give it to you anyway. So, and I think it's a different Playa Blanca than the one you went to because yours was on the Caribbean, but we went to Playa Blanca at Punta Leona on the Pacific coast, spent a week
Ah,
there. It was, I guess, similar to Manuel Antonio beaches, very white sand, turquoise waters, the most beautiful beach I went to in Costa Rica. It kind of reminded me of being at Cayo Coco in Cuba, that kind of sandy beach. We did have a package. It's not like all inclusive like you get in Cuba, but you did get, like I said, all the great beaches, pools, activities at no extra charge. Just the food was a little extra and the drink. And it was really cool to see the monkeys visiting, the buffet during your meals. And I can't say enough about the local golf cart repair shop because I got a punctured tire in our RAV4, and that little family-run repair shop was so friendly about it. They fixed it right away for a super low price. And that tire repair lasted us the rest of our time in Costa Rica. So if you ever need a tire repair in Punta Leona, go to the
Go
golf cart
there.
repair shop.
Yeah, I know they also have a dive center there. I love scuba diving, so I've considered going. I've just never got the chance, but now that I know it's your number 2, I'll definitely have to check it out.
That was my number 1.
Well, that was your number one, right? We're all the way up at number one. Okay, it must be wonderful. All right, I'll
For
check
me
that
and my family, it was great.
out.
And we didn't go scuba diving or even snorkeling, but one thing that I did really enjoy, and my son especially, along those Pacific Coast beaches, is you get these beautiful tide pools when the tide goes out, and you can find all these little aquatic life just in these tide pools.
Yeah, beautiful. Something to look at, especially when the sea is too rough, right? You can enjoy the tide pools without the worry of being swept away into the sea. So I'll definitely have to check that out. My number one is another area, and it's also on the Caribbean coast, but this time right down close to the Panama border. It's called Puerto Viejo. And within Puerto Viejo, there's different areas, but it has possibly the most gorgeous beaches in Costa Rica from anywhere that I've seen. What I really love is that most of them are quite protected and natural. Some are part of national parks, some are just not yet developed, and the local community is trying to keep it that way. So for a real sort of Robinson Crusoe, escape to paradise feel, I recommend any of the beaches and the town of Puerto Viejo. There's also an interesting factor there, and it's that it's the center of the indigenous population in Costa Rica also. So we have like an intersection of three different cultures there. You have the Afro-Caribbean culture, you have the regular Tico culture, the Latino culture, and then finally you have the Bree Indian group, indigenous group. And you can go and visit their reserves. You can go and trek with them into the jungle to beautiful waterfalls. You can learn about their way of life. Other people have gravitated to that area to have, ecotourist kind of experiences. You can go and learn about permaculture. You can learn about different types of agriculture that works with the environment. So it's definitely a sort of an epicenter of all cultures in Costa Rica, just because you have those three different dynamics peacefully and interestingly coexisting in a small area of Costa Rica. And of course, if you feel like it, you can hop on a bus and go over to the Panama side and explore a little bit over there too. So it's just a stunningly beautiful area, culturally interesting, loads of great food. Oh my goodness, the food in the area, especially if you have a dietary restrictions or choose to be vegan, excellent options. Of course, if you want to have seafood, it's fresh there too. So it's got something for everyone. It's just my favorite place in Costa Rica, and that's why it's my number one.
Sounds fantastic. I think it sounds like you could write a travel guide at this point. You've been to so many amazing places.
Well, you
Uh,
definitely, you don't get out exploring as much when you live here as when you're on vacation, but you do still have opportunities to go out and explore everything. Part of the appeal of living in a foreign country, right, is to get to experience it and see all of these wonderful sights and meet all of these different types of people.
and you're so close to other great countries to visit. Like you said, you can just hop over to Panama or up to Guatemala or Nicaragua and see. You
Mhm.
said you went to Isla Ometepe, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, Nicaragua was a beautiful country also. We took the bus to get there. That was a grueling 8-hour bus ride, but you got to see a lot of the Costa Rican countryside. You're definitely tired and hot by the end of the day, but it's, very inexpensive, and staying in Nicaragua is very inexpensive too. We would rent a little hut on the beach for like $17 a night kind of thing on the island. I mean, where do you get that kind of deal nowadays? Guatemala was maybe my favorite. We did take an airplane, but the flight was $105 return from San Jose, Costa Rica to Guatemala City. So even though it's a bit of a further distance, wow, the convenience and the price really made it an easy trip to do. And yeah, by living in Costa Rica, you are within a few hours of visiting so many of the other wonderful countries of Central America and also Northern South America. Like Colombia is very popular for people here to travel to also.
We did yeah, Panama, got to see the Panama Canal and the Bio Museo. by Frank Gehry, which was one of the highlights for me of that trip. So yeah, so much to see in the
Nice.
area. All right, I guess we've spent a lot of time talking about all the amazing things to do and see, but getting on the topic of your work, how do you like teaching in Costa Rica? Can you elaborate on the difference between teaching your classes online versus in person? You know, what are the class
Yeah,
sizes for each student age range, and like, how do you even
sure.
teach that curriculum?
Okay, so yes, I really enjoyed teaching English here in Costa Rica. It actually has made me decide that that's what I want to do with my career, is just be an ESL, EFL English teacher. Like it's truly my calling, and my experience here in Costa Rica is what solidified that. I had the privilege of working for a school that, you actually recommended me to. So thank you, Rowan, for that. And they had an excellent methodology that they taught us that added to the knowledge that I gained from the Oxford course. And it was really interesting to have different types of students. So generally speaking, there were three types of students that I was teaching. The first one would be corporate students. So the school I was working with specifically was selected by some of the largest corporations here in Costa Rica. Corporations like Amazon, Dole Fruits, Procter and Gamble. So for that was business English. So teaching different levels of business English, usually intermediate to advanced students, but all of them professionals, all of them very motivated to learn English. All of them had wonderful attitudes. So that would be the corporate students. And those students were taught online. Those were online courses, usually of groups anywhere between 2 and 12 students, usually for those projects that they would be doing that were business focused, that would really help them use that English in a business context. So that would be the first group of students. And I have to admit, that was probably my favorite type of class to teach. I love teaching the business English, and they're just so motivated and interesting. It was, I'd look forward to teaching them. It's like, yeah, okay, good. Here we go. Work starting in an hour. Like, what are we going to talk about today? So, working the lesson plans around what they're interested in, or specifically in their industry or in their workplace. So that was really good. The second group of students would be, they were students in a program called Education to Employment. And what this was a government-sponsored program where people who are maybe at an economic or social disadvantage would learn English to improve their skill set to make them more employable. So they were actually being paid a little sponsorship by the government to attend the course and to do well in the course. And it had a focus towards business English. It was kind of a mix of an academic and a business English class. And the other component for them was helping them create their resumes, helping them create an English LinkedIn profile, doing cover letters, practicing interviewing skills in English. So it had that really real life application to it. And it was really rewarding because you'd get a sense by the end that you really helped the students get to a much better place where they'd have better opportunities of employment. They're not all young, but they're usually, I would say, between 18 and late 20s, trying to get into the job market. Maybe they've just finished their college course or high school, and they just want to add more skills. 4 days a week online, 2 hours every day. So it was an intense kind of learning experience for them. But I really enjoyed it because of the course material and the discussions we'd have and just how much we were helping them. So that would be the second type of student. The third group of students I taught were high school students, and these were my students that I taught in person at a high school. So every Saturday I would teach two groups. Scenery around is beautiful. The school was very nice. We would do classes outside sometimes, but these are students that are just now finishing high school. So the intent of the program is really similar to the adults that were doing the education to employment. This is to bring up their skills, help them now that they're graduating to go in to get jobs in English. And it was a different dynamic for sure, both because of the in-person aspect and also because of the age. Suddenly you're with young people. The students were between 16 and 19 approximately in this course. They were maybe not quite as motivated as the other groups simply because they're still high school students, right? We know how they kind of are maybe a little bit more apathetic, maybe not quite so motivated. So the challenges were more to keep them interested, keep them active in the class. I found that having competitions where I would put them in different groups, that would really bring out more motivation in them and engage more. Getting them to do their homework was always a challenge, right? So being able to be there in a classroom allows you to do a larger variety of activities, more activities that can include learning through movement. For example, I would have them go out and video a tour of the school or create imaginary commercials for products that they would then film together. So it definitely had a nice aspect to teaching in person, just because you can really do a larger variety of activities, and you can also keep your eye on who's not participating. It's a more positive environment as far as the ability to interact and the ability to have more activities that you're doing.
And in terms of the curriculum, was that all provided, the lesson
Yes.
plans basically given to you, or were you creating from scratch, supplementing?
Good question. Good question. No, they do have lesson plans for everything. So the way that the students interacted with the platform, it was an online platform where each section of the course had a module. They would open up the module and follow. So usually there would be a warmer activity, and then maybe a presentation activity, and then practice activity. So I would have a lesson plan that would, of course, direct me how to use the material. But at the same time, the activities were such that you could adapt them, and you could certainly add your own material in also if you thought it was appropriate. And customizing and adapting the material was part of their methodology that they taught also. So I thought it was a nice balance between here's what you have to do, but here's what you can do to make it more fun or more applicable to your students. You don't have to have any fear that, oh my goodness, I have to create a 3-hour lesson plan. You don't have that pressure, but you do have a sense that, hey, I can adapt this to what I think would be really great for my students in this particular class. So I really enjoyed the format of that. It felt very, very up to date, very accessible, easy to use. I would say there was a lot of homework that they were doing, lots of projects they were doing. So there was quite a bit of time that you would have to spend outside of class, not just preparing for the class, but grading and assessing and doing all of that also. So the workload was pretty high with it, but it was very rewarding, and I thought the format was really good.
Great. And you're not at that school anymore. You moved on to another online school in another country. Kind of like, I guess, how I was living in Costa Rica, working for a company that wasn't based in Costa Rica, a little bit of digital nomad life. So how do you enjoy that? And do you see that there being kind of a future in that kind of employment scenario?
Yeah, definitely. So the only reason I finished with the first school is because we decided to move to the Caribbean side. Sadly had to leave the first school that I'd enjoyed teaching at very much. But again, you actually pointed me in the direction of another school. So now I teach for a school the school is located in Quito, Ecuador, but I'm still here in Costa Rica. So yes, totally a switch to that digital nomad kind of lifestyle. And I would say I enjoyed teaching at this school equally. It's completely different. The students are somewhat similar. I teach business English, and I'm teaching professionals business English. And they're also very motivated, and friendly and warm. So I'd say the Costa Rican experience is very similar to the Ecuador interface with the students. The school itself, now, when I had taken the first job with the school in Costa Rica, there was a very long interview process, many steps to be completed. The school in Ecuador was sort of a very short interview, and wow, we like you, you're hired. Can you start the day after tomorrow? Um, so I'm not sure if that's typical or if that was based on an immediate need they had to hire quickly. And also the training aspect. The first school in Costa Rica had a week-long training of methodology. The school in Ecuador, I had a half-hour meeting with their academic advisor kind of person, and that was it. So I will say that if I had not been an experienced ESL teacher already, I may have found the Ecuador process a little bit difficult to get started with. I would probably feel a little lost if I was a brand new teacher kind of thrown into that. And the materials are more outdated too. There's a student book and there's a teacher book, and there's different files you have to access to get to every part of the course. However, they are revising that. So they're planning on bringing out a new format that's totally online in September. So it's just, a little different pace that maybe they're evolving their curriculum and the way that they teach. Definitely more of an experience of being thrown into it, and, you have to hit the ground running kind of thing with them. But the students are equally as interesting and motivated, and I've really enjoyed teaching them also. So far from the 2 English teaching jobs, I'm 2 for 2. I really love teaching for both schools, and I'm happy to be where I am now, as happy as I was where I was in Costa Rica teaching.
Awesome. And that's part of the I guess the challenge, but also the fun of teaching abroad. You kind of just got to roll with the punches sometimes and take things as it comes
Mhm.
and adapt and
Yes.
make the best of it. And I'm sure they appreciate very experienced teachers who don't have to require a lot of upfront training and hand-holding, especially,
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like from what you said, they're kind of updating to be more online uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
adapted, but you were really provided with the same materials they would have been using in their in-person classes.
Yes, exactly. Right. So even the listening activities tell you to listen to CD number 3. Of course, now they have them all in a zip file, but I won't be too critical because the material itself is actually quite good. So it's just a need to update that format, and they're already doing that. So I'm not going to complain at all. So, a little bit more prep work, but it's still good material. Both schools had that focus on being really centered on, the students' practice and their own generation and production of language. So I appreciated that approach from both of the schools I worked with.
Yeah, it does sound like kind of like you hinted to off the top, very in line with the Oxford Seminars certification,
Absolutely,
their
absolutely.
80/20 teacher or student talk to
Mhm.
teacher talk, and very communicative, focused, engage, study, activate. And
Exactly, exactly. I will explain, the industry has changed. So if you were a teacher and you took your ESL training way back when I did, or even 10 years ago, you should consider taking the 120-hour course. You recommended it to me, Rowan, and you're 100% right. It's what a lot of schools are now going to look for, but it also gives you just a much more in-depth training. I'm totally happy that I have taken your advice on that and upgraded my
oh,
certificate with you.
great, glad to hear it. Another thing I would say, just from my own studies over the years in education, often I'm learning as much from my peers and my classmates throughout the course. Now, some people are completely new to it, but other people have been teaching in some form or another for many years and have a lot to add to the course themselves.
Yeah, and that was true for the class I was in just now, the one I'm currently in. We just finished our 60 hours of the Zoom, and I was the only one who's already an ESL, EFL teacher, but there were 3 other students in the class who are teachers in primary school. So, they definitely had a lot of insights and advice to bring to the course also. Me personally, I haven't really taught many young children, so I definitely learned from them, how to have a class with children. And it's organized so that you get chances to work with your other students in the class, right, in groups
Mm.
preparing different things. So it's not just you're sitting there listening and then doing your own independent thing. You're working with others, you're designing lesson plans and activities. Absolutely, the students that were in the class with me, like, we all really liked each other, appreciated each other, and learned from each other as well as from the instructor. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Awesome. All right. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh my goodness, there's probably too many things I'd like to share with your your listeners. I wanted to say that, the Oxford course is 100% uh, recommended, not just because of the course itself, but because of people like you, Rowan, the placement advisors. To be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect out of it. I kind of thought, it may be good, but it's probably just something to try and give me pointers on my resume. But you did help with resume, you did help with cover letter, but you also really did recommend me to some real schools. Like, you are the reason why I got that first job in Costa Rica. And then you helped me again when I finished there and needed to move on and get the job in Ecuador. So I really feel like Oxford Seminars, puts its money where its mouth is. I was not expecting that at all. I was just expecting to get my certificate and then have to go and do my own job search. So that added element of all of the extra assistance that you get, I think makes it probably the best ESL course you can take. I really do feel that. And I'm not just trying to butter you up, but that's the real experience. It's like I contact the school, you recommend me to different places, they contact me, I got the job. It's like boom, 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 it all happened. So thank you for making that happen. And that's what I would really say. If you're interested in teaching abroad, the Oxford Seminars course is the real deal. You'll learn everything, and then you'll have a lot of assistance and support after also. And it's a lifetime of support you guys offer. So don't be surprised if I'm contacting you again to find another position.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your kind words. It was very heartfelt, and I appreciate it. And absolutely, we're always here for our course graduates who are looking to teach abroad now or in the future. We have people coming back for fifth, sixth, seventh placements down the road. So anytime, we're glad to help however we can.
Okay,
Well, I
well,
guess
thank you.
we've spent many amazing minutes together today, but
Oh,
we probably should get going. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It was so great
pleasure,
having you.
Rowan. Thank you for your time too. It's been so wonderful to see you face to face and meet you and chat about Costa Rica and teaching. It was really great. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks again.
Hasta la próxima vez.
Okay, a la próxima. Pura vida, Costa Rica.
Pura vida. So before we go, I do have a little job placement update for those job seekers who may be listening. Our contacts in Costa Rica tend to have positions starting throughout the year, and it's good to start applying about 2 to 3 months before you want to go. There are mainly jobs with private language schools teaching business English to adult professionals or general English to students of all ages in the San Jose or Liberia areas. And if Simone didn't convince you to go teach in Costa Rica, I don't know what will. Thanks, as always, for tuning into the Teaching Abroad pod. We'll be releasing new episodes monthly for the foreseeable future. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the usual places. If you have any great ideas you'd like to hear us discuss in upcoming episodes, please leave them in the comments on YouTube or email us at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Thanks for listening.